I spent my whole life giving. Love, time, energy, dreams. A silent, constant kind of giving, made of small gestures no one really noticed, and no one ever thanked me for. But it was on an ordinary evening, surrounded by laughter that wasn't mine and wine glasses I'd be the one to wash, that a single sentence cut through what little was left of me. And right there, in front of a plate of food I had cooked myself, I realized they never really saw me. If you've ever felt invisible, in your own home, this story is for you. Before we go any further, make sure to subscribe. Sometimes, just one story is enough to remind you of the strength the world tried to make you forget. It was a warm Friday evening in Savannah, Georgia. The sticky breeze of late afternoon drifted through the windows of the house I had lived in for over 2 decades. Golden light from the setting sun slipped through the linen curtains I had sewn myself years ago. The smell of roasted herb chicken, my grandmother's recipe, filled the living room. Soft jazz played in the background, setting the tone for a dinner I apparently wasn't really invited to. My daughter-in-law, Hannah, had forgotten, again, to mention her parents were coming. Everything had to look just right, and, as always, I was the one who made sure it did. Fresh flowers, ironed napkins, porcelain plates from the glass cabinet. I was raised to serve, with a smile on my face and thorns in my heart. At 7:12 p.m., I heard the clinking of glasses. I was coming up from the wine cellar, carrying a carefully chosen bottle, when I heard her voice. "Oh, that's Nancy. Sort of our unofficial housekeeper. She keeps everything running smoothly." The laughter that followed sliced right through me, light, dismissive, and joined by everyone at the table, including Andrew, my son, the same boy who once clutched my hand in the dark, now laughing like I was part of the furniture. I stood there for a second, the bottle still in my hand, my face frozen in an automatic smile my soul could no longer uphold. I pretended it didn't hurt, pretended I didn't hear, pretended I didn't exist. I walked into the kitchen quietly, set the bottle down on the counter, and felt my knees tremble inside. The laughter from the dining room echoed like invisible hands, pushing me further away from everything I had built. The table I bought with my first paycheck, the walls I painted myself, the family photos I framed with care. None of it felt like mine anymore. None of it felt like me. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't confront anyone. I just sat on the edge of my bed and looked at the door I painted sky blue when we first moved in. It used to be my favorite color. Once, this place was home. Now, it felt like a house where I served meals and disappeared afterward, like a well-mannered shadow. I remembered the day I signed the mortgage papers. It was my name, my down payment, my credit. History. Andrew was still in college. Hannah wasn't even in the picture yet. I gave everything. And now, I was the maid. The next morning, the sun rose like it always does, indifferent. I made the coffee, just like every other day, fed the cat she pretended to like. And when she came downstairs, distracted by her phone, dressed in her expensive yoga set, I was ready. I handed her the full set of keys: house, garage, gate, mailbox. She frowned. "What's this?" "Good luck paying the mortgage," I said. And then I walked, slowly, through the same living room where so many laughs had ignored me. Down the staircase I had painted myself. I didn't bring luggage. I didn't bring memories. Just my purse and the old coat I wore the day I brought Andrew. "Home from the hospital," he called out when he saw me leave. Ran after me, barefoot on the lawn, but I didn't stop. I closed the car door gently. There was no anger in my gesture, just something deeper, a kind of clarity that frightens you. I realized I had been alone there for a long time. But now, finally, I had decided to leave. The apartment I inherited from Great-Aunt Dorothy wasn't big. It wasn't pretty either. but it had something my old house hadn't given me in years: silence. A thick, raw silence that smelled of old wood, yellowed paper, and moisture hidden in the cracks of the walls. The whole place felt frozen in time, as if the outside world dared not disturb its solitude. That first night felt like diving into deep water without a lifeline. No TV, no voices to fill the air. Just the sound of the kitchen clock, ticking like it was watching me. I sat at the table under a crooked yellow lamp and stayed there, a piece of toast with butter untouched in front of me. The phone didn't ring, the cell didn't buzz, and deep down, I already knew it wouldn't. Andrew didn't text, he didn't call, nothing, and that hurt the most. For the first 72 hours, I moved like a shadow, slept on the couch, the mattress in the bedroom had springs sticking out, lived on crackers and canned soup. I didn't want to cook, didn't want to care. For the first time in decades, I didn't have to serve anyone, and yet I had no idea what to do with that freedom. I didn't cry. Not yet. But I started writing. Pulled out one of Dorothy's old spiral notebooks from the hallway drawer, the one where she used to keep Christmas cards and worn-out clothing tags. I sat on the living room floor, back against the wall, and wrote like I was stitching words together with my heart in my hands. I wrote about the night Andrew had a fever, and I stayed up all night with him in my arms. I wrote about all the birthdays, where I baked the cake, wrapped the gifts, cleaned up the mess, and was never in the photo. I wrote about the nights he and Hannah went out to dinner, and I'd hear their laughter through the bedroom wall, pretending to be asleep so I wouldn't have to face the sting of being left out. Every sentence was a scream I had never spoken. Every comma, a breath held in silent pain. I wasn't writing to remember. I was writing to excavate, because deep down, I knew I had lost myself somewhere along the way, and maybe now I had a chance to find the woman I used to be. It was during a dim afternoon, while rummaging in the pantry for a light bulb, that I stumbled upon Dorothy's iron chest, tucked behind a stack of old dish towels, rusted and heavy. I knelt down right there and with some effort managed to pry it open. Expected needles, maybe thread, old buttons, but instead, I found envelopes, dozens of them. One in particular made my blood run cold, my name written across it in shaky handwriting. If you're reading this, it means you had to come back. I'm sorry I never told you. My hands trembled as I unfolded the aged paper. The words seemed to travel across time. Dorothy, whom I had always known as reserved, practical, almost cold, was revealing a truth that would change everything. She had been a nurse at the same hospital where Andrew was born. That night, there had been a mix-up, switched rooms, mislabeled bassinets. She had doubts she ignored out of fear. But years later, tucked in her documents, she found a sealed agreement signed by the hospital and another family. She had no more doubts. Andrew wasn't my biological son. The name on the paperwork, stamped, signed, and backed by a DNA report, was someone else's, Daniel Whitmore. I held the photograph with shaking fingers, a baby wrapped in a blue blanket. The birth date matched, the hospital matched, and suddenly, everything did. Andrew's distant gaze, the quiet discomfort, the way he laughed when Hannah mocked me. That coldness I kept excusing as a tough phase. It hadn't been in my head. It wasn't him, and it wasn't me. But the strangest part was, I didn't feel angry. Not at Dorothy, not at the hospital, not even at Andrew. What I felt was relief. A bitter kind of relief, but necessary. Because maybe, just maybe, I wasn't crazy. I wasn't a bad mother. I was just a woman trying to love a son who had never been hers. And somehow, that truth set me free. I didn't tell anyone. Not Andrew, not Hannah, not even the few friends I had left on my contact list. What would I even say? That I'd just discovered the son I raised for over 30 years was never mine? That the boy I sang to sleep, bandaged knees for, prayed over in silence, came from someone else's womb? No. Some truths don't need an audience. They just need space to breathe. In the days that followed, I kept writing. I wrote about Dorothy, about her loneliness, her fear, her silence. I wrote about myself, about the silence I inherited, the fear I mistook for duty, the pain I called love. And slowly, the apartment began to feel. Like mine, I changed the yellow lampshade. I bought fresh sheets that didn't smell like mothballs. I made soup, not for anyone else, just for me. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't eat standing by the stove. I sat. I breathed. I listened to the sound of my own chewing, my own heartbeat, the wind moving through the old window panes. No one texted. No one called, and still, I was alive. One afternoon, as I walked to the corner store for milk, I passed by a little sewing shop, the kind of place where time slows down. A woman stood behind the counter, humming softly, threading a needle. The sign on the window said, "Classes on Saturdays." I hesitated. Then I walked in. The scent of fabric and old wood hit me like a memory. There were shelves full of colorful spools, old sewing machines with names engraved in brass, and a wall covered in photos, smiling women, patchwork quilts, birthday banners, stories told in stitches. I signed up, and that Saturday, I sat at a table with 6 other women, some older, some younger, all strangers. We laughed about crooked seams and stubborn threads. We shared stories, and no one asked me who I was to anyone. No one asked who I used to be. They saw me. Just me, Nancy. That night, as I walked home with the wind in my scarf and a small swatch of fabric in my bag, I smiled. Not because everything was okay, not because the past had magically healed, but because I had finally stopped apologizing for existing. That might seem small to some, but to me, it was the beginning of everything. The night before was a rehearsal. I closed the door to the apartment, sat on the couch, and with my hands clasped over my knees, I said the words out loud. "Daniel, I'm your mother." But the words didn't come out strong. They caught in my throat, slipped, died before they reached the air. I tried again. There was a mistake, a mix-up at the hospital. Nothing sounded right. How do you explain the unexplainable? How do you compress an entire life into a few lines? I decided to wait one more day, and then another. But the words followed me everywhere. At the grocery store, in the bathroom, even when I closed my eyes, trying to dream. The following week, I walked into the bookstore without thinking. Daniel was alone, organizing some biographies. He smiled when he saw me, that familiar smile that had somehow become part of my routine. But something in my eyes must have shifted, because he looked at me closely, as if sensing something was about to happen. "Everything okay?" he asked gently. "Can we talk, somewhere a little more private?" My voice came out soft, as if the air itself was begging me to be careful. He hesitated for a moment, then nodded. He led me to a small back room, simple, cozy, with a kettle in one corner, a worn-out armchair, and the scent of old paper mixed with peppermint. I sat down slowly, adjusting my blouse as if trying to calm the storm inside my chest. He settled across from me, curious. "You come here a lot." "I like that," he said, breaking the silence. I gave a soft smile, sadness pooling in my eyes. "There's a reason for that, and that's what I came to tell you." He furrowed his brow, but waited, eyes focused, heart open, even if he didn't know why. I reached into my bag and pulled out Dorothy's envelope, the one that carried the weight of a lifetime. I placed it on the table with trembling hands. "Before you open this, just know I'm not here to ask anything of you. I just needed you to know the truth." Daniel looked at the envelope, then at me. His fingers touched the paper as if sensing the vibration of something old and still alive. He opened it carefully, read in silence. Time seemed to stop. The only sound was the faint clicking of the kettle in the corner. The words began to take shape in his eyes. His lips parted, his jaw tensed involuntarily. He read to the end, then set the papers down and stared at them, unsure whether to stand or retreat into himself. "Is this real?" His voice was low, almost a prayer. "It is," I whispered. "I only found out recently. And since then, I haven't been able to carry it alone." He was quiet for a long time. Then he stood, paced the room, stopped with his back to me, took a deep breath, and turned slowly. "You're my mother?" The question landed like a knife wrapped in silk. "I'm the woman who gave birth to you. But the mother you know, the one who raised you, she's real too. And I would never try to take that away from you. I couldn't." He ran his hands through his hair, shaking his head like he was trying to rearrange his own thoughts. "My God, this changes everything. And at the same time, I don't know if it changes anything." His words broke me and put me back together, because I didn't know either, and that was okay. "You don't have to accept me. You don't have to call me anything. I just wanted you to know who I am, that I exist." He sat back down. His eyes were glassy but steady. "Can I think about this? Process it all?" I nodded, tears slipping quietly down my cheeks. "Of course. It's your time. I've waited a lifetime. I can wait a little longer." He gave me a small half smile. "Would you like a cup of tea?" And just like that, our first conversation ended. No hugs, no promises. Just a warm cup of tea between our hands and a thread of hope hanging in the air. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was intruding. For the first time, I was a presence, not a shadow. Autumn arrived in full in that little town, painting. The trees in shades of rust and copper, sweeping dry leaves across the sidewalks and bringing with it a kind of silence that didn't frighten. It comforted. It was as if everything was slowly coming undone, making space for something new to grow. The house sold even faster than expected, at a good price. With the money, I paid off every debt, and for the first time in many years, I owed nothing to anyone. Not to banks, not to people, not even to myself. Andrew and Hannah had 30 days to leave the house. No drama, no excuses. Just the sound of boxes being stacked, of carefully staged photos being taken down from the walls. I passed by once. From a distance. I saw Hannah giving orders to the movers, her sunglasses acting like a shield of pride. I saw Andrew sitting on the porch step, phone in hand, shoulders slumped. He looked tired, but not regretful. And I no longer expected him to be. I returned to my new place with a light heart, not out of revenge, but out of justice. A quiet kind of justice that, like autumn leaves, spreads gently and without noise. Meanwhile, Daniel and I continued, walking slowly, with small, honest steps. We met for coffee once a week. We talked about books, about the changing seasons, about how the wind can shift the direction of everything. He didn't call me Mom, and I never asked him to. Our connection didn't need a name. It was made of something finer: respect, choice, quiet kindness. One chilly morning, just before winter set in, he invited me to see a new part of the bookstore. He was renovating a back room, a small space filled with light from big windows, pale wooden shelves, a soft rug, and a circle of cozy armchairs. "I want this to be a space for reading and gathering," he said. "A place that welcomes, that embraces, that doesn't judge." I smiled, running my fingers over the freshly sanded wood of one of the shelves. "It's beautiful." He handed me a small brass key, simple, polished, shining in his open palm. "I want it to be yours, for you to open whenever you like, for you to come when you need to. This space, it can start with you. The tears came without asking. They slid down quietly as I closed my fingers around the key. You don't need this, Daniel. You don't need me. He held my gaze with unwavering eyes. But I want to, and that makes all the difference. That afternoon, I sat in one of the armchairs in the freshly opened room, a cup of apple cinnamon tea in hand, a book in my lap, and a soul finally at rest. I wrote my name on a blank page, Margaret Bennett. No titles, no borrowed last names, no papers to define me, just me, whole, alive, worthy. I didn't have to scream to reclaim my story. I didn't have to beg for a place at the table. I just had to leave. I just had to say, enough. The voice of women from my generation, so often silenced, sometimes only needs a thread of courage to become an earthquake, and I am living proof. Closing message: if you made it this far, know this. Not every fall is a failure. Sometimes it's simply life's way of setting you free from what no longer fits. You don't need to be accepted by those who refuse to see you. You don't have to beg for affection in the name of family, marriage, or tradition. Your story matters. Your silence carries weight. Your dignity is not negotiable. And when you finally find the key to your freedom, don't hesitate to turn it. It might not open the door back to your past, but it will surely open the way forward. If this story spoke to you, subscribe to the channel. Sometimes all we need is to remember. There are still chapters left to write. Thank you for being here.